welcome Professor Andrew Campbell, the CEO of ACIAR, who is going to give the opening remarks and who has a deep and abiding commitment to inclusivity and empowerment in all areas of agricultural research. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Rebecca. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many ACIAR partners and research leaders on the call. And I'd like to, at the outset, congratulate the Meryl Williams Fellows for your initiative in organising this webinar. You are undertaking your fellowship in difficult historic circumstances, and it's fantastic to see you adapting your approach to these constraints. We've got a terrific lineup of speakers this afternoon. I'm looking forward to it very much, and I'm sure we can learn from the various case studies. The challenges about improving inclusiveness and empowering smallholders in modern supply chains is a very high priority for ACIAR. It has been for a long time. And of course, that's coming to acute focus with the COVID-19 pandemic. We're just in the final phases of completing the second stage of a three-stage rapid assessment of food system risks and resilience in the Indo-Pacific. This is both to inform our own future investments to see where we can best help as we hopefully come out of the pandemic. And I'm pleased to be able to share with you today some of the preliminary findings of that work, which is being led by the Australian National University and CSIRO here in Australia. It won't surprise you that the immediate consequence of COVID-19 and the pervasive disruptions it's causing is growing food insecurity across the region. And that within that broader context of growing food insecurity, women, girls, and other vulnerable groups are being the hardest hit. Just like climate change, this pandemic is a risk multiplier. It's amplifying pre-existing problems, pests and diseases like fall armyworm, African swine fever, locusts in East Africa and Western South Asia. They've all been amplified by COVID-19, and it's made responding to them much more difficult. Restrictions on movement and restrictions on inputs and so on have made it more difficult to tackle those problems. And obviously labour constraints are more acute. So smallholders have had to react deftly and creatively as an unpredictable situation unfolds in diverse circumstances across the region. Our rapid assessment is focused on PNG, Timor-Leste, the Pacific Islands, the Philippines and Indonesia in the first instance. Even within that geography, there's a significant diversity of food system challenges, but everyone relies on the stability of regional food trade to feed their populations. So some of the key impacts that are of most concern to us. Input supply chains have been disrupted. So seeds, fertilizers and pesticides have become much more difficult for farmers to get. Restrictions on movement more generally has made it more difficult for farmers to sell their produce, to get it to, in particular, to urban consumers. Access to credit has become much more difficult in a widespread way across the region, and that's made it more difficult for farmers to establish crops. Income flows off farm from remittances, labour remittances from tourism have diminished. And some of those remittances, of course, help smallholder farmers, but also they help consumers to be able to buy food as well. So the reduction in remittances is affecting both production and consumption. The longer these impacts continue, the more likely we are to find that a health crisis has morphed into a food crisis. and that's something of great concern across the region. Farmers who've managed to get by over the initial first season or so are now very worried about the challenges of acquiring inputs for coming cropping seasons. So if they cannot secure sufficient seed or fertiliser, then we may see further reductions in production, increasing food insecurity in the region. We're about to publish this second phase report on our website, so please keep an eye out for that. It makes for fascinating reading. The third phase of that work will be to ask the question, so what can we do about it? And to start to tease out the types of interventions that will be most productive to inform ACIAR and our partners as we consider where best to invest over coming years. I'm looking forward very much to hearing from fellows, Meryl Williams fellows, and once again I congratulate you on your initiative in establishing this webinar and look forward to its outputs very much. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you, Andrew, for that somewhat sobering discussion. I'm looking forward to the third phase, where we learn about what we can do about it. The speakers today are going to be discussing what they've been doing about it. I'd like to introduce the first speaker, Professor Derek Baker from UNE. He's the director of the Centre for Agribusiness and a global expert in supply chains. Derek will be setting the scene for us. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you, Rebecca, for that introduction. Agriculture is a set of systems and cycles and resources. And as an economist, the two resources which interest me the most are the money in the system as a source of income and the knowledge in the system as a source of advance and development. The process we use to turn money into knowledge is what we refer to as research. And what I'm going to be talking about today is research associated with smallholders' access to modern supply chains. And in particular, I'm going to be highlighting some gaps in the literature and also introducing some of our speakers today in terms of their contribution to that. Now, turning knowledge into money, that's what we refer to as innovation. And it's common that people talk about new products and new pieces of machinery as being innovation. But as a matter of fact, organizational change and some of the changes in marketing systems, and we're going to show Lastiana's presentation later on, is going to be looking at new ways of addressing the market through what we might refer to as business models, ways of taking value into the market. And recent work we've done on another ACIAR related project was where Zainal Asikin in Indonesia had been looking at the activities of smallholders, because the innovations are something that's measurable, and constructing business models out of those sets of innovations and using those business models as a target for the kind of assistance that can help people access markets on the one hand and input supply on another. Now, most of what I'm going to be saying today is about supply chains, and let's just put ourselves for a moment in the position of a supply chain manager. Supply chain managers are generally trying to make their supply chains more efficient. One measure of that efficiency is cost efficiency, and a driver of cost efficiency is trying to get the purchase price of the product down to its lowest possible level. So we're faced with perverse sort of outcomes like this: very efficient supply chains leaving behind very poor smallholders. And Diana's starting point there is around, well, what is it what we mean by inclusion and empowerment of those smallholders as they get close to supply chains? And just one research subject that I wanted to raise here is we need much better measures of what the welfare of those smallholders are like, not just in terms of income, but in terms of risk management capacity, in terms of stability and various measures of that kind. And Gero Carletto and colleagues at the World Bank have for some time been looking at different ways of measuring income, looking at whether family labour is being rewarded, and looking at the intricacies of the rewards available from labour off the farm, something which might be very much interrupted by something like COVID-19, and how that relates to smallholders' engagement with what we very loosely refer to as the market. Now, there are about 500 million smallholder producers in the world, and the majority of them are what are loosely referred to as subsistence, which generally means that their interaction with markets is occasional, perhaps unplanned, perhaps involved in the sale of seasonal surpluses. And that expression subsistence is usually used to contrast it with market orientation. Now, economists love to talk about markets. They're important in price discovery. They have a lot to do with resource allocation, and of course, you know, they underpin a lot of economic philosophy. But the fact is that a lot of our transactions in food supply chains actually don't take place in markets. They are subject to things like contracts and vertical integration and long-run relationships of various kinds. It's actually led people like Michael Bollier in the United States in the 1990s to say that competition in the food markets is no longer between products. Competition is actually between supply chains. So those market-oriented smallholders are actually confronting supply chains. And Kristen and Anderson has shown that only a small proportion of those market-oriented smallholders are really tightly linked to supply chains. That means really tuned into them to the extent where they can exploit the benefits that are available. And Joost Winnen from Belgium and colleagues over a number of years have been looking at what's the performance of those tight linkages. How does it affect welfare? How does it affect regional development? How does it affect income? And what are the mechanisms which are involved in that kind of tight relationship? How does it affect product flow, for example? How does it affect the nature and the timing of payments? And what about information flow, which is so important to value addition? So I'm going to crudely represent supply chains with this kind of diagram, and there are those three flows there: product flow, payment flow, and information flow, which really constitute what goes on within a supply chain. Now, information flow is something that Lastiana is going to be getting at later, in particular how the incentives are passed, and notice the double-headed arrow there, incentives are passed up towards smallholders, and then information, particularly in the form of certified product attributes, is passed all the way down to the consumer. And in Lastiana's case, we're going to see a remote smallholders serving high-value international markets using that information flow. Now, as a researcher, I'm kind of always perplexed that we have such few measures of the performance of the supply chain as a whole. We're pretty good at measuring profits and losses and return on investment and cost of inventory and all that kind of stuff that actually affects the individual firms. But what we don't have is a really good measure of all of chain performance. And we have those kind of perverse outcomes I mentioned earlier, where we can look at a supply chain and comment on its effectiveness, its efficiency, and so on. And we're not taking account of the position that its operation leaves certain stakeholders, and my primary interest has been in smallholders in that regard. Now, another research approach is to have a look at what the links are in the supply chain. What kind of relationships do they pursue? And this is the thrust of a lot of Swinnen's work. And today on contracts, Vouchsim is going to be showing a case of contracts which have really enabled the access of smallholders to modern supply chains. Now, another research approach is to try to look at the individuals along the chain. And I've spent quite a bit of time trying to do this, particularly looking at traders and how traders might be enabling any of those three flows of the chain so as to add value to the system. We often think of intermediaries, middlemen, etc., as being unproductive, but actually they have a value addition proposition. The difficulty is you can never find them. You don't know where they are, and when you find them, they don't want to talk to you. So really, there's a big research gap in what we understand there regarding the market intermediaries that are there. And Chantalie's presentation is going to go into how some of those intermediate actors along the chain and how indeed governments are dealing with a big disruption like COVID-19. Now, sticking with that simple representation of supply chains, I want to say a few things about disruption. Now, I'm an economist, and when I can't measure something, I just like to draw a graph. And any students of mine that are watching will be not happy to see yet more of these. Conceptually, we can think about performance of a supply chain over time and how it might be impacted by a particular event, COVID-19 being one such. And I guess what I'm interested in is what sort of escape mechanisms have we got here? What's going to be the nature of that recovery? Will it be quick and steep and then sustained? Will it take a long, long time and then gradually return to a previous level? Or are we never going to get back to where we were in the first place? And certainly those are very, very, very clear problems that we need to address. But at a higher level, I'm more interested in the idea, can we actually measure performance so that it's actually taking account of the stakeholder interests along the chain? So can we have a redefined measure of performance? Having done that, can we lift that level of performance? And in particular, can we make it resilient such that it's not interfered with by these kinds of events? So there are some big research gaps, and I look forward to the other presentations today, and I'll be around to answer questions and join in the discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, for setting the scene. Can I encourage everyone to post their questions on the Q&A icon session below? Just click on it and then you can answer your questions and we'll direct them at the end of the session. I want to introduce the next speaker, Diana Chalil, the reason that we're all here. Diana, several months ago, suggested that we hold a webinar on inclusive supply chains. Diana's a lead researcher on palm oil at her university in Indonesia and is going to frame, using her conceptual framework, the next three speakers, talking about inclusivity and empowerment. Welcome, Diana, and thank you for your leadership in organizing this.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. I would like to, within the next 15 minutes, I would like to share about the concepts and the measurement about the inclusive supply chain in smallholders. Okay. As we already discussed and Derek already introduced, that when we talk about the inclusivity, we are not only talking about the inclusivity of smallholders, but the whole supply chain inclusivity. Means it from the farm until the end consumer like us. It also involves the collecting point, the traders, and also the mills. So this is in line with the concept or the idea of SDGs, that the inclusivity of the smallholders can improve the inclusivity of the whole supply chain through the business opportunity, the employment creation, and it can lead to the achievement of the SDGs, a number of Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, but today we are going to focus on the smallholders. And why is it? Because it's already been mentioned by Derek that in the whole world there are more than 500 million of smallholders, and although it only owns less than 15% of the total agricultural land, but it provides the agribusiness products, including food, for almost 70 until 80%, it means that it's not only about the smallholders, and it's not only important for the smallholders, but also the whole players in the supply chain, including us. As you can see in the map that it shows by the orange and the red colors. The red color shows the ownership of individual smallholders that less than 2 hectares, while the orange is around 2 until 5 hectares. It means that showing the significant color in the map, we can see the significant share of the smallholders in the whole countries. So to get the empirical concept of this, I would like to use the case in Indonesian oil palm smallholders that it I think okay. About the inclusivity, there are so many programs and many researchers about the inclusive supply chain, and some have different perceptions about how to measure the achievement of the inclusive supply chain. Number of studies or programs think that inclusivity is already achieved when the ownership and the reward is already increasing, is already improved. For example, the ownership of land area of the smallholder. If the total land area is already improved, it's already considered as an inclusive supply chain. Or if the selling price is already improved, it's also can be considered as inclusive supply chain. But then empirically, we can see that it's not only the important aspects of inclusivity. There are also risks and there are also voice. As we can see, agribusiness, special characteristic of agribusiness is involve a high risk, high risk. So especially if we're talking about the perennial crops, it involves a long period of that. And we also need to consider about the voice, because through the voice we can understand what is really the needs of the smallholders and what is the challenge among them to achieve that. So to empower the smallholders, we really need to consider about the voice aspect. To get the clearer picture of that, I would like to use one empirical cases of the supply chain, that is the oil palm smallholder case, that is not only widely traded in the whole world, but also can be seen as a complex supply chain. If you can see the smallholders variation, I only take these two aspects, that is partnership and the certification. And taking these two aspects, we can see at least there are 6 types of smallholders in the oil palm smallholder case in Indonesia. That there are smallholders that is being a partner called as plasma and certified, until the one that with no partnership at all and no certification. Using this, we try to design and conducting studies in Indonesia. We take 194 samples and 997 scheme and independent smallholders in 4 center of smallholdings in Indonesia that involve almost 50% of the total land area, which is around 16 million hectares in Indonesia. And we can see that for the 4 components of that, risk being the most improved aspects, that being a partner with big companies, the risk is already transferred to the companies, and the smallholders will face least risk. But in contrast, we can see that the voice have the lowest score, showing that it's still not prioritized in the whole 5 types of the smallholders. In this case, we can cover the 5 types, not one. Only one types that is not there, and the whole types shows a similar result. And then, okay, but we can see that by taking that case, okay. In that case, we are trying to measuring the inclusivity by using the 4 components. That for reward, we try to measure the improvement in productivity, selling price, and market price income. And then for the ownership, we try to measure the land and the certificate, the land and the group asset. And voice, we try to measure by the bargaining power and the involvement in pricing meeting. And then the risk, although we can see it from 2 aspects, whether it's reducing in the risk experience or faced by the smallholders, but actually we can also see from the improvement in their risk management skill. But in this case, we only see the transferring risk to the partnership. And then from that, we can learn that the voice become the least prioritized in this case. Okay, using that, we're taking the result to the whole supply chain of palm oil. We can see that being one of the most complicated one, for example, we can see the bilateral supply chain between Indonesia countries, which is the place of the smallholders, and then the European countries with the consuming countries. We can see that the relationship is still very dynamic, and there are so many unsolved issues yet, although there are so many efforts for doing that. For example, there are so many countries that try to commit it only to supply, to consume the certified sustainable palm oil. But in fact, we can see that since from the 2009 until now, there are only around 50% of the produced certified palm oil that is really rewarded as certified palm oil with higher price. And the ideal one, the hope, the target condition is we not only want that kind of very dynamic and uncertain relationship, but we try to have a very nice supply chain that is really have an angle, good and nice an angle between the producing countries and the consuming countries. Actually, it has to have a inclusive or active contribution from all the farm to fork, from the producing country until the end consumers. Currently we try to study there in Indonesia. We already have involved the whole players. In this case, we try to achieve the carbon emission reduction. And then we find that to achieve the inclusivity with 4 components, we still have to deal with so many things. For example, decrease the risk, we have to get a contract. But to get a good contract, we have to have a trust, and then we have to get transparency. And that is not easy, and we still have so many gaps to fill in. And we can see further on from the next 3 cases, some examples of those difficulties or achievement for the 4 components on other influencing factors for achieving the 4 components. Okay, with that, I think I finished my presentation. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Diana. I want to remind everybody that the slides and the recording will be up on the Geared Global website next week. So you'll be able to go through the slides at your own pace. Our next speaker is Vouchsim, who's the Vice Chief of Agro-Industrial Development at the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries in Cambodia. Sim will be presenting her work with small contract farmers. Welcome, Sim.
So thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for your introductions, and also thank you to Professor Andrew for all the opening remarks. So I'm Vouchsim. I'm working at a Department of Agro-Industry at Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry and Fisheries. And I would like to talk about a topic on linking smallholder farmers to markets through contract farming. And the outline will be started with introduction. And second one will be implementation activity achievement, followed by challenge and forwards. And based on the literature study, and also like in Cambodia, we have a common contract farming definitions, and those definitions will aims to strengthen the responsibility and trust between farmers, such as producer and buyer. And second, we ensure the accuracy of price, purchases, and supply of crop or livestock, both in quality and quantity. And third, we will increase the purchase and processing and also exportation. And the first one will be contribute to the national economic development, poverty reductions, and also contribute to sustainable development goals. So now let's move to the implementation activity and achievement. Since 2011, the sub-decree on contract farming was endorsed by the Royal Government of Cambodia. And then some legal other documents, such as the Reththy circular and decisions, and also the decisions on the establishing the committee were endorsed by Ministry of Agriculture. Since we have those legal documents, so how we can implement and also engage with the smallholder farmer through contract farming. So we have numerous extensions and also training and also business matching forum that we engage the farmer, producer, agricultural cooperative and associations, as well as the company and also agricultural enterprise, and together with also with provincial department. Actually in Cambodia we have 25 city and provincial departments, and in 2019 we have conducted 22 trainings and business matching forums that have participants as a smallholder farmers and also the other relevant stakeholders, around more than 1,000 participants. And this is the picture that shows that we involved in the training and also business matching forum. And the last one from the bottom right, this is the current activities during COVID-19. I think we have the business matching forum between the farmer and also cashew nut farmer during the COVID-19. And we also have the cooperation with between private producer and also partnerships. And within the national and subnational, we have line ministry and also provincial department of agriculture working together. And for example, also we have been working with private company, for example, Signature of AZ, OMRAI, and other NGO and developing partner. Within the result here, so I put in from 2017, 2019, we've seen a significant increase in the 2019, the number of contracts reached to 498 contracts. So what are the agricultural products that have been contracted in 2019? It's major from the pig contracts, followed by the chicken contracts and the rice contract. In rice contract, we have white rice contract and also organic contracts. And followed by corn, beans, vegetable, fruits, cassava, mung beans, also green vegetable and palm sugars. So this is because right now we are working on the supply chain and also value chain of cashew nuts market in Cambodia, and also how we are doing and also implementing these activities. So just a brief overview. We have the farmer here on the left here. Usually like the farmer sell the raw cashew nuts really like in the price around $1.5 to the middleman, no contract here. And so we have like the bordering country that buy from our farmer, and then they we go and put into the processing factory, both in first processing and second processing. So in the middle here, we can see like there's no contract between the farmer and also the middleman. There's no quality or financial control and also the market price. So from our department working with the other relevant stakeholders, we drafting the Cambodia Cashew Nut Agro-Industry Master Plan as summarized here. On the left, we see a group of the small farmer. So we right now in the phase of engaging those small farmers in a province, in Kampong Thom province, one of the province in Cambodia, with the small enterprise that sees the enterprise owned by the woman-owned enterprise, and sees the first processing and also second processing really in small amounts. So we now in the first stage to do the contract farming and operating involved between those smallholder farmers with this enterprise. And I think earlier 2 weeks ago, we have the plan also to establish the handicraft to the first processing to the processing factory that have that will comply with the quality and safety management standard ISO, and also hazard, we call hazard critical control point, that will ensure that. And will be on the right side would be the next stage after the factory have established and also comply with the standard. So the factory will sell the, those products to the other market, for example, international market, European, USA, Japan, and others market. So once again, we in the first step that engage all the smallholder farmers that grow cashew nut to the processing company or processing factory. So in here, it's just like really like specific. This is the model that we put further. So how we can increase and put additional value to the cashew nuts. It is in terms of like the quality. So in here, we have like the farmer, cashew nut center, our village. There's also small logistic center or drying facilities. and we undergo with first processing and second processing under the end consumer. So in between, we have the contract that I mentioned in the earlier slide. And we have from our department as well, we have laboratory. So in here, we also have some samples of the grow hazelnut sent to our laboratory to ensure and also to have the traceability model system within the process. This is just the pictures that show the signing ceremony of the raw hazelnuts of the enterprise. It was during this COVID-19, and it's very like the concern issue as well. Before, she didn't have contract with the farmers and also agricultural cooperative that she been working with. And when the COVID-19 came, the AC could not secure like the quantity to supplies to the handicraft, and the AC suggested her to ask the individual farmer whether or not they would like to do the contract with her. And here we have 7 farmers that are willing to do the contract and within like 150 tons of red hazelnuts. And we will follow with the second season in the next month as well for around 300 tons of raw hazelnuts. And as we can see, we've been engaging those smallholder farmers and to the market and through a specific contract. And we see how it contributes to the inclusivity. As Dinah has mentioned in the like the second slide, inclusivity, it means no one left behind along the supply chain and along with the supply chain actors. And we can see in here we have ownership, rewards, void, and risk. And we observe that the farmers, they have like the lands, and also they have their productions that can supply to the buyers. And within that, they receive the rewards such as like they have like the fixed price, and they have also the provisional like credits from the factory, and also with a government panel from us and from the other NGO, introduce the farmer with appropriate technical inputs. And they also have the reliable market right now, specific market. And regarding the voice that the smallholder farmers of raw hazelnut can have, they have the voice and to discuss and negotiate with the arrangement and all the process in the contract. However, because they lack of some capability, so some legal documents, we have them to complete. And regarding the risk, they really concerned about like the price change. So this is really like a close monitoring between us and also like the buyer as well in terms of setting the price. So the price will be determined really like strictly in the contracts, whether it will be like checked with the others markets weekly or based on the specific contract firm. And we see a few challenges. And the first, it's awareness of the farmers. We see that they don't really know what is contract farming and why we have to do, why they have to do the contract. And so this is through the initiative and also the retraining that we should introduce to them, and also like limit capacity in terms of like technical capacity, and also the capital investment and operational costs, because it comes like the industrial crop, for example, like in case of the raw hazelnuts, it comes only like 2 seasons, and within like the first season, for example, like in between 3 or 4 months, they lack of the capital to buy the input, and also to it's hard for them to buy the raw cashew nut in the big quantity and to supply to the buyer that they have in contract with. And that's also because of the road accessibility. Some farms are really far from the place that they sell the product to, and it's very difficult for them to transport the product to the points that they sell the products. And also the logistics, if they really hard to transport the product, so it will delay their transportations, and they don't really have enough like place to store their products or the warehouse. So these are the challenges that we've been observed and we hear from the farmers. And this is the current activity and also that's the forwarding activities. On the top left here, he's the Minister of Ministry of Agriculture. And in the sub-degree, we have actually the involvement of 18 ministries as the committee. So there are 2 meetings of the board committee annually that is presided by minister. And from his recommendations, he would like all the partner and also from the government, private sector, NGO development partner to continue provide relevant extension or trainings and also consultative meeting with the farmers and cooperation and strengthen other cooperations. And we have we have also the ongoing implementations and activities of the projects, such as the ongoing study and collections of information. Information on the process of implementing contract farming as input to analyze and evaluate for inclusiveness in the draft law on contract farming. And we have like this research study from that we cooperate with Top Planning Japan on the local project on cashew nut value chain improvement in Cambodia. And we've been working with Mekong Region Land Government and Center for Policy in earlier on the scoping study on the research on agricultural business investment business model in Cambodia. And we now also in the process of drafting contract farming law that we received the technical support from Harvest 2 program USAID in 2019. So we continue to have our extension and also the program addressing awareness to the farmer through the introduction of contract farming and through the media and TV and radio on also on social media. And thank you so much for your kind attention. And this is the end of my presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sim, for that presentation on cashew nut contract farming. I encourage everybody to ask questions via the Q&A icon. Our next presentation is from Lastiana Yuliandari, who's a leading entrepreneur in Indonesia and the founder and director of Aliet Green. Lastiana will be discussing her experiences of linking farmers to export markets via certification. Welcome, Lastiana.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you everyone for coming. So I would like to discuss about the perspective from the private sector in linking smallholder farmers to the international market. I have often asked about how to manage or organize smallholder farmers to be part or to sell to the international market and the requirements connected to it. So about us, we are a woman social enterprise dealing with processing, handling, and exporting our natural, organic, and fair trade specialty products from Indonesia. We were established in 2009, and our products come from agroforestry in Indonesia. And our target market is 100% export market, high-end consumers. And then we have been organizing and working with over 1,000 contracted smallholder farmers, mainly women and some disabled farmers. And also we have been hiring more than 60% local female employment. And uniquely, none of us is having agricultural background, but we love agriculture. And the products we have been exporting is the processed coconut products like coconut sugar, milk, syrup, and also tropical and processed fruits. And you can check our website, alietgreen.com, for the rest of the products we also export. And how we do this as a private sector, so we are basically the bridge between the traditional market to the international market. So all the products coming from our smallholder farmers are processed manually. And in Aliet Green, we are basically reprocessing, handling, and exporting the products and beautify the products as well. So to be accepted or well accepted in the international market. We are currently serving and supplying reputable organic food and beverage manufacturers like chocolate manufacturers, mainly in Europe. And then, of course, the cosmetic industries. Our ingredients are also used in cosmetics industries, even though it's all food consumption, for food consumption. And then also we are supplying private labels for organic retailers and supermarket chains in Europe and in the US. And then why we take organic, we would like to take the opportunity of the organic market. It is a niche market, and then the three major organic standards are coming from EU, US, called USDA NOP, and Japanese organic standards. So we have been able to fulfill those three major standards. As long as I know, when you can fulfill these three major organic standards, you are already in the market for organic products. And of course, there is an opportunity. It will be connected to the demand. So more and more consumers are looking for good taste, good products, with good quality, and convenient purchases have also become more and more aware of social and environmental issues. So the demand is more going to the sustainable sourcing. It has been mainstream. So there is a significant group of consumers that are increasingly seeking pure and natural products, especially during Corona pandemic. So more and more people are looking for organic products in the shops. And we talk about organic products, and then of course that there will be connected to the supply chain management. And of course, to prove the organic itself, we need to be certified. So we need to adopt the certification schemes. As you can see on your screen, that there are so many logos, and those are basically we have to obtain to be able to sell to the international market. And then, of course, the industry itself has consistently tried to meet the market demands by adopting the various certification schemes. And of course, certification is getting more important this time, because normally the buyers or the clients all over around the world can come to the country, especially developing countries like Indonesia, where we are located, to check, to see how to get the business going. But because of the travel restriction, like Corona pandemic, they are not able to come to have a look what is happening, especially when they are going to purchase the product. They need to see before they can purchase. And of course, certification is getting more important. Why I say that, because now the buyers in the international market, they rely on a third-party certification to be able to buy the products. So when you are already certified, so you can show the certification, and then they do not need to check due to the travel restriction currently, but they can rely on the result of the certification. And then, of course, when we talk about the certification, there are also risks connected to it. First, about time and efforts. Once before you get the organic certification, when you produce conventional products, you need time to convert. So like around 2 or 3 years. So, and then of course you need to make sure that the farmers can understand the standard. So you need time, you need training, you need to build, basically you need to do capacity building before you are able to export. And then, sorry, it's a bit, so, and then beside that, when we talk about, now I'm talking about the certification groups, not only single farmers certifying the farms. So it means that there will be a lot of process, the paperwork, everything has to be documented, especially in organic certification. So all the plans, farm planning and everything has to be recorded. And of course, when we talk about certification for smallholder farmers, it's not really cheap because we have to pay every year. So it has to be updated every year. We have to pay the inspectors coming. So, and then when we do that as a group, the cost is getting less. But when you do it as a single smallholder farmer, it's really, really expensive. And then I can conclude here the risk. Okay, here on the risk, when you see all the logos before, it looks like label shopping, but yes, we need it somehow when we would like to enter the international market. But of course, we need the commitment from the farmers as well. As my farmers, over 1,000 farmers, so we need their consistency, we need their commitment. One farmer is failing to the project, so the rest of the farmers will fail as well, and then we will not get, we are not able to sell the products. And then of course, when it comes to certification, the supply chain is getting more complex because all this, the supply chain has to be certified from the farm itself, farmers, us as a processor and the exporter, and then the importer itself, themselves, they have to be certified as well. And of course, to obtain the certification, you need to get trained. And of course, it has to be done on the annual basis. Otherwise, that yeah, farmers can forget about the standards, or when there is a new standards, you don't inform the farmers, that also can be a problem. So, and of course, the increased cost as well connected to it, because all what we are doing here will also cost money. And then we are talking about risk before, but there are also rewards coming to what we are doing. So exclusive, unique, and specific products deserve premium prices. And as all we know, that organic prices in the market are decently higher price, having a higher price for about 5 to 10% above the conventional products. And when you are selling it as fair trade certified products, you get additional premium prices on top of the organic products by 10 to 15%. And the clients buying as fair trade will have to add additional fair trade fund, so in cash, by 5 to 15%. So beside those, all these price and premium prices, when the project is solid and measurable, the farmers, smallholder farmers in a group can have the access to capacity building, social, economic, and environmental projects with international organizations. For example, like public-private partnership, friendship grants we received from DFAT Australia last year, and sustainable development goals, and also others. And these are some information that I have just told you before about the friendship grants we received from DFAT Australia, and also from the Netherlands for climate smart agriculture in our project, and also capacity building from the German organization. And what I can conclude here is that basically the most important thing is that you and the farmers are connected, and then we can agree on what we are planning to do when we would like to move forward. So the community and the business investment and all the impacts, positive impacts can be basically felt, can be perceived by both sides. So, and of course, now the sustainable and transparent food chains are really important. And especially again, we are working in agriculture products, and luckily enough that the market is there, and people are more and more looking for healthy ingredients, healthy products, So that's why the sustainable and transparent food chains are really important. And of course, there are side effects of the certification schemes, positive effects and negative effects. Of course, the negative effects are about the costs. The more farmers you have, the more costs you will have to spend. And of course, that the side effects are that the market are there. So the market are ready for you. So when you know how to do it. And then one thing that is now quite trendy at the moment is about blockchain. So big companies have adopted this accelerated pace in food industry, and we have implemented blockchain in 2017 for our coconut products, fruit that we have exported to the Netherlands. So the blockchain technology is about like a cloud server that receives the information about the supply chain from different supply chain that is uncorrupted. So basically, it's already solid and it's there, can be accessible. Even the end consumers can access, and the end consumers can also talk to who is or who are producing the products they are buying in the market or in the shelf. So if we still have a minute, probably you can have a look the video, but otherwise you can check on YouTube about Aliet Green Ltd. So about the videos about what we are doing with the farmers and what we do. So yeah, just have a look there. And then of course, thank you much for listening. And if you have any questions, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Lastiana, for that really exciting talk about how you've grown the organization and what some of the issues have been in linking farmers to markets through certification. Thank you. Our final speaker is from Laos. It's our dear Chantalee Sifongsai. Chantalee is going to be talking about how COVID has affected her province, Yang Quang. She's the Deputy Chief of the Agricultural Sector in that province. Welcome, Chantalee. Okay, Chantalee has got very poor internet connection. I can't find her in the panelists, so I might. Andrew Edwards, can you please contact Chantalee and see how she's going? And whilst we're waiting, I'll field a couple of questions. So we have questions relating to value chains, and we have questions relating to contracts. So Sim, I might ask you a question first about contracts.
Yep.
A question relating to how binding the contracts are that you make with the farmers.
Okay. Yep. I was written on the comment as well. So in terms of the formal contract, that is stated in the sub-degree 36 on contract farming, and when the farmers and the buyer agree to bind the contract together, they are advised to prepare the contracts as follow. So the first one, they have to fill the contract form. We have the template, and if English required, they will have to translate it after they fill the Khmer form, and then we have to check with the buyer. We have to check with the buyer supports in terms of inputs or pre-financings or technical advice. And the third one, what are the types of products or quantity to supply? And we check also with the quality product specifications and also method of verifications of the product. And followed by the application regarding the product method and verifications, or other application of the user, and also other applications of the buyer. And then we check with the price and also the price reference, and also the management and transactions, such as transportations, how to deliver, and also receipts. And And then with the modality of timing for payment, excuse for non-performance such as natural risk or force, and duration, the new mode of the termination, and remedy for breach in case of an excuse non-performance, conflict resolutions, and the last one, like monitoring and assessment. Yeah. So, yeah, it's along like the process to bind the contract between one farmer or one agricultural cooperative with the buyer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sim, for stepping in. Welcome back, Chantalee. We're happy to see your face.
Sorry. Yes.
No, not your problem. So we're ready to hear your presentation. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I'll keep it short. So let me share about the case study with about the voice of the farmer and legal stakeholder from Siêng Khoang province who have the impact from the COVID-19. So next. Laos is like other countries that have prevention rule and policy of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have the decree number 6 from the Prime Minister. And yeah, till now, we still have 20 cases affected, and we continue applying prevention rule and keep social distance policy. Next. So Siêng Khoang had been prepared and planned in 2015 to be the host of the national game during March to April for agriculture sector. We have to ensure for the food security for those games and as well as for our people as well. These are some agriculture products that we have been prepared for the food security, such as rice, vegetable, eggs, fish, and so on. Next. So there are more than 35,000 enterprises that register for agriculture business that have the impact from the COVID-19, both direct and indirect, because all the supply chains had been disrupted. The reduction of the demand and the supply in food chains, which leads to difficulty of the farmer, smallholders, entrepreneurs, and other stakeholders. Next. So here I would like to share with you some information and data about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic from 3 case studies in Siêng Khoang province during the first 6 months of this year. So the first case here is the direct report from the farmer and smallholder. The 2 vegetable farmer groups report that their vegetable product that they used to sell before the COVID-19 and during the lockdown time reduced about 20 to 33%, as well as the price dropped about 38 to 83%. They also have the local supplier or the smallholder also report to the COVID-19 committee in Siêng Khoang province here that they used to supply the vegetable to the another province before the COVID-19. There's about 15 trucks. So but during the first quarantine time, they cannot send those vegetable products at all. But then the second lockdown time, they can send some vegetable, about 35 trucks per day. However, the price is very have the huge impact for them, is dropped about 88%. Next. So the second case is the individual survey from 116 smallholders. This survey had done by Lao Agricultural Micro Enterprise Project. They interviewed those smallholders about the quantity that they prepare for sale and the actual sold out. Together with their sold amount and the amount that they expect to have from the sale, in those 116 smallholders, only 83 of them cannot sell the product at all. Only 33 of them can sell. Even those 33 smallholders can sell some product, but they have the big loss of their income, especially here in this table as the cabbage and the vegetable, because the amount that they expect to have then is more than 230 million kip, but the actual unsold amount that they have only 33 million, so they have lost the income during that month is 190 million Lao kip. So next. So this is the third case study as we have conducted the group survey. This we conduct by the La Agriculture Micro Enterprise projects and also the SEDA project. They had been conducted group survey, 28 of them, and this mentioned they have shown in here. In those 78 of them, we interviewed 72 farmers, or about 78% they have the impact on their income and their production. And then the results show that in the second part here, the impact on the service and the customer response. 18 of this group, 18 group of this 28 survey have lost their customer base. Next. I also have some link for you that you can visit to have a look about the voice of the farmer, how have they been impacted from the COVID-19. But I'm not going to show you here today. You can access that later. Next. And there's numbers of ways in which this impact may be addressed, which I would like to share the voice from each stakeholder that they use for the immediate problem solving. Here you can see a different voice from three different groups. From the farmer group, that they say that what they can do in that lockdown time for the vegetable leftover, they feed for the animal and they sell in the raw price. Some they share with their cousin or their neighbor, and they also propose the government to get moving permits. And then from the private section and the bank, yes, they open the online sale, delivery service, mobile money transfer, and delay the debt collections. From the government and international side, they had advertised a popular production, regular production transfer policy, and they also empowered business to working on continue to working on their business. Next. So to continue way forward to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have the collective action plan that involve the ownership voice from each stakeholder. Farmers said that in the future, they are going to use the integrated farming to increase diversity and to minimize their risk as well. Of course, they're gonna learn and adapt the new cultivation technique to increase productivity. They're also gonna learn and create the free online market and increase the marketing linkage. And from the business sector, they mentioned that in the future, actually they are starting now, they're gonna provide the cold storage service and transportation, the cool transportation service, and they start process the product, like they can do the drying and fermented product or as in the good packaging. Next. So from the public sector here is, yes, of course, we are going to continue to facilitate farmers to access the policy from the central to the local government and the financial resources and provide technician, processing, maintaining technology, and provide relevant necessary processing equipment. And from the international side, also we work together with art from the NGO. They're gonna continue to support art to facilitate and then provide the consultation service and support policy, coordinate with the partner. And then from the bank and the microfinance group, yeah, they already have the policy and they are going to continue to survey the policy for the loan and propose the debt cost and fixed interest rate and offer the loan for the customer and so on. So here, this is all the significant information and data about the impact from the COVID-19 pandemic for the food supply chain in Siang Khouang province, and together with some good lesson learned that we have been working on about the participation for the program solving that include the collective voice and ownership, the risk management, and the action plan from the related stakeholder. And these are some pictures that where I can get the information to share with you today. This is the consultation workshop from next, please. These are some picture I mentioned earlier. This is the discussion from different groups, from different stakeholders to talk about what they have been doing in the lockdown time, or what they want to do in the future, and what they can do and work together. So that's all for my presentation. If you have any question, please ask. I'm very welcome for your comment and suggestion. So thank you so much, Rebecca, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chantal, for that presentation. Well done, everybody. Thank you so much. We actually only have 5 minutes for questions. I've been watching the questions as they're coming up, so I'm just going to direct a couple. As I said in the chat, the discussion will definitely continue via the WhatsApp channel, the Supply Inclusivity channel. I have posted the link to that. We will be posting the presentations on the Geared Global website. Again, I've posted a link to that in the chat function. So I have a question for Lastiana. Lastiana, the question is, how did you implement blockchain in your coconut product chain? And how do the farmers that you work with feel about this technology?
Okay, thank you. First of all, we did not expect that we would be able to try blockchain. We tried with 30 registered farmers who could basically run the mobile phone. So we started with a very old-fashioned of mobile phone, because some of my farmers cannot read and write. So they were assisted by our internal control system staff, how to connect the mobile phone and the computer. Of course, the computer is run by our staff here who can run the computer. So basically, the system is like you sell, I give an example. What we have is from coconut products, coconut fruits. You sell 30 fruits, and later on the product, or on the fruit itself, there is like a QR code. So where the end consumers can scan, and straight away they can see who is producing this coconut fruit. So, and then if they want to, they can contact the farmer itself who's producing that. So how many wives he has, for example, how many kids he has, he knows. It's once the end consumer is scanning, and straight away the data of the farmers can be seen from that. So in the beginning, of course, our farmers were shocked how to do this, because some of them did not have mobile phones. So we had to basically lend them the mobile phone, the simple ones, so then work how to do it. So, and then basically the end consumers can see how the product is being produced and who is behind that. More and more consumers would like to know who is behind this product, and is the family can also eat like what I eat, for example. That's what is in the organic community is doing at the moment. So that's what blockchain can help, instead of, yeah, it's just at the moment it's still discussion how to do that, because it requires technology. Of course, it requires mobile phone, a computer, and who can run it. So that's the simple thing I can answer now. I hope it helps.
Thank you, Lastiana. I have another question for Sim about the gendered nature of cashew nut farming. So what's the situation, Sim, of women smallholders' involvement in Cambodian cashew nut supply chain? Is there any difference between the challenges the men and women smallholders face in participating in the chain?
Regarding the this is could I emphasize the question again? Is it like the difference between the woman owned enterprise and also male owned enterprise? Is it
Yes,
something?
it's about the different challenges they might face.
Oh, okay. Actually, we seem to see they have similar challenges. Earlier, I think last month we have a consultative meeting as well. that conducted by the Kasunat Association in Kampong Thom, and we also like supporting them as well in the discussion. And within the challenge I have mentioned in the my slide earlier, they have similar voice of the woman-owned enterprise and from the man-owned enterprise. So they are similar. They have a similar challenge. Yeah. I think I see other questions as well. So should I go to that questions, Rebecca, Dr. Rebecca?
What I might do is we've got 1 more minute. So I might actually sum up by saying I do understand that there are a few questions. Please direct your questions via the WhatsApp channel because our presenters are more than happy to answer them. Again, the WhatsApp channel is on your screen, but it's also in the chat function and you can just copy and paste across. I'm going to hand over now to Professor Andrew Campbell again to give some closing remarks. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, and thanks, Derek, but thanks in particular to our Meryl Williams Fellows. That was fantastic content. Chantalie, your data is tremendous real-time data, and particularly getting direct feedback from the different sectors along the market chain. For us, it really highlights some of those and gives puts meat on the bones of some of those issues that have emerged in our rapid assessment of food system risks. This whole area of inclusive supply chains is one of the most crucial areas in our work writ large. It's a fascinating and challenging area to research, and each of you have given different windows on it. I was at a forum organised by the Economist magazine in Singapore last year with very large companies from agribusiness from all over the world, and all of them were struggling with how do we address this problem of the last mile of getting systems that work and are attractive for smallholders, which provide them with sufficient reward and enable them to access the higher value markets, but in ways that meet the needs of those higher value markets. And as several of you have pointed out, more demanding consumers who want to know that their food has been produced in particular ways. How do we do that without making it too onerous, too restrictive, or too disempowering for the smallholders, and making sure that they actually get the right rewards? So the 3 big words that I took out of these presentations were incentives and trust and transparency, and how we design systems that provide those to people along the market chains. You guys have given us some terrific insights today in diverse contexts. So Diana, very well done for suggesting this forum. That was a great initiative. And Sim and Lastiana and Chantalie, you have also added fantastic information for us. It gives me great confidence, Rebecca, that the Meryl Williams Fellows will be people who make a difference in the world, and will be helping us to tackle what are going to be very, we shouldn't be glib. We're in a global health crisis that may well become a food crisis across our region, and we're going to need talented leaders who are well informed and have very good skills. And so I'm even more pleased to be that ACIAR is able to support the Meryl Williams Fellowship, because I think you guys have presented a fantastic webinar today, and you give us great confidence about the leadership in food systems across the region that is being developed. So well done. I hope your WhatsApp group is able to tease out some of these questions in more detail. And I look forward to interacting with you and the other Meryl Williams Fellows much more as we hopefully come out of this pandemic over the next couple of years. Well done.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, participants, and thank you, panelists, for a wonderful discussion. As Andrew says, we really enjoy working with the Meryl Williams Fellows, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to do next. So thank you all, and have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.